Spider-Man. A superhero created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, with his first appearance being in issue 15 of Amazing Fantasy in August 1960. And fun fact, you already know who Spider-Man is. I mean, he's America's #1 superhero. So when I, Robo, found out that Marvel announced Spider-Man freshman year, I was pretty excited. Well, good thing that whole freshman year thing didn't really work out, because golly gee, the team behind this not being tied down by MCU obligations made the show so much more enjoyable. So even with all its setbacks, from the show's entire plot being changed to fit its own universe, to the somewhat shaky animation, to the voice actor for the main character coming out and saying this very weird statement, I still really enjoyed this show. So let's rank every episode of your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Season 1, Episode 1, Amazing Fantasy. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man opens up with Peter, of course, being late to his high school orientation to Midtown High. So Aunt May is like, hey, here's your really shitty breakfast because we can't afford Frosted Flakes. So then Peter leaves and is late for his train, meaning that Aunt May has to drive him there. And aw, look, they have that little Iron Man car mirror chain, how cute. And while we are in this car, we get a stellar scene between Aunt May and Peter, all about Uncle Ben. And oh my god, why couldn't MCU Spider-Man have a scene like this? Here, let me put my anti-copyright TV screen here for you guys, so you guys can watch the scene.
And it'll be nice, to have something to distract from everything else that's been going on. May, I just want to say thank you. Things have been different without having Uncle Ben around, but you've always been here for me. You have always had my back, and I really appreciate that.
The moment Peter walks out of his car, Doctor Strange appears from a portal, fighting some Venom symbiote fella. Huh, I'm sure that won't be important later. This fight looks overall very choppy and weird at some points, which makes sense since this is the first episode and the team was probably just figuring out how they wanted this show to look. During this tussle between Strange and Venom, Peter shows some heroism even without any superpowers, and saves this blue-haired girl named Nico Minoru, which, if you know anything about Marvel's Midnight Suns, she's usually part of that team. And in this show, she's one of Peter's classmates, which I personally think is really cool, having a character in this show that we know will become another superhero, helping Peter on his crime-fighting expeditions. But the show doesn't just come out and say it. Very well done. This show actually does a lot of planting the seeds, giving us a character or just touching on a character so we know that they exist in the world, and they will have importance later down the road. Overall, great storytelling. After Peter saves Nico, she tries to talk to him, and just like me, Peter folds after any contact with a woman, getting bitten by the spider and falling to the ground. You're probably wondering where the spider came from, and if you were paying attention to the Doctor Strange fight, it came from the portal that Strange opened above Midtown High. Very interesting. Sure, that won't be important later. After getting bitten, Peter falls to the ground. Now it's time for the intro. This show's intro is super good. Spider-Man shows have a pretty good track record with intros. I mean, I love Spectacular Spider-Man's intro, and the OG Classic one too. I would say between those two, this one's somewhere in the middle of them, being better than but not being better than After that awesome intro, we get shown Peter a few months after being bitten, waking up for school and getting hit by a taxi, and being late for his train. So, he pulls out his homemade Spider-Man suit and decides to use his powers to swing to school, giving us a cool montage of him swinging around the city. I think this homemade suit is actually pretty cool, with this almost like hockey jersey shirt and these canisters on his back filled with his webbing. I think the suit is actually pretty good. Peter hears some screaming for help, and so he decides to go and help the person instead of getting to school on time, which is one of the most Spider-Man things ever, Spider-Man. Peter then swings in and helps this kid who is about to get isekai'd while also getting robbed at the same time. This is tragic.
Stevie, get this clown on live.
So this random kid is voiced by legendary voice actor Kellen Goff, who is responsible for voicing all of these guys. So then Kellen Goth guy tells his friend in the yellow hoodie to start live streaming their crimes, which is like, are you guys stupid or something? So this kid in the yellow hoodie is voiced by the Miles NPC guy? Are you serious? That's actually kind of cool. This kid in the green says that Peter's outfit looks like shit, but don't worry, Peter. I think your suit is awesome. So Peter takes out these thugs and webs them up. Harry, I'm sure that name means nothing, thanks Spider-Man and asks if he could pay him for his good deed. And Spidey is all like, nah, it's good, man, and just leaves. While we are on the subject of Harry, no last name, totally not Osborn, he's voiced by Zeno Robinson, responsible for voicing all of these characters. Peter then gets to school late because, of course he did, and we see Nico and Peter talking, being all buddy-buddy with each other. Turns out Peter can talk to women. Good job, Peter. I strive to be like you one day. While Peter is talking to Nico, he bumps into his crush, who's a girl named Pearl.
He's always been a bit clumsy.
You know me, clumsy, Petey, Parker.
Oh, hey, Nico. Hey, what's up, Pearl?
Never mind, Peter. You can't talk to women. He's just like me for real. Peter then skips class to go Spider-Manning, which shows us some awesome low-level small-town crime fighting, which Spider-Man is known for. With this confidence from stopping that truck, Peter now believes he can ask out Pearl. And, well, she already has a boyfriend. Even Nico is sad about all this. She's like, damn, even I wanted to date her. Turns out, the guy Pearl is dating is named Lonnie Lincoln. I'm sure that means nothing. Lonnie asks Peter to work with him in the science class, and Peter's all like, fine, but I don't want to. Peter and Lonnie have this fun scene together, showing these guys actually get along pretty well. Peter watches Pearl and Lonnie kiss and gets jealous after Pearl leaves, so he talks to Lonnie for a bit. Then we see Lonnie walk home from school, and this whole scene is great, giving us a glimpse into Lonnie's life and his struggles with racial injustice, which is done tastefully and pretty well. After that awesome scene, we get to see Lonnie's home life, with his mom, his dad, and his brother. And oh man, Lonnie is a actually pretty nice guy, and a compelling character. I really hope nothing bad happens to him. After that scene, we see Spider-Man help out a pizza place by capturing a robber who stole money from them. And Peter actually makes the pizza guy not press charges on the thief, because she actually seems sorry and apologetic about stealing, which is also a very Spider-Man thing to do. Very cool. The pizza place then gives Peter some free pizza as compensation. Peter then heads home after dumpster diving and finds a DVD player. As he walks into his apartment complex, he sees a fancy car outside and takes a picture of it. As he walks into his apartment, we see a recreation from the scene of Peter meeting Tony Stark in Civil War. But instead of meeting Tony, Peter meets Norman Osborn. And bam! That's the end of episode 1. Overall, a really great start to the show, and leaving off on that cliffhanger of the Norman Osborn reveal was a good way to keep me watching. So I would say episode 1 is A tier. Season 1, Episode 2, The Parker Luck. Something I really like about the show is that after every opening, we get a unique title card that looks straight out of a comic book. Super cool. We start Episode 2 with a continuation straight from Episode 1, with Norman asking Peter if he wants to work at Oscorp and volunteer there. And of course Peter is all like, hell yeah! So Norman leaves and we get this fun scene between Peter and May. We get some more Peter crime fighting and swinging before he gets to high school, named Rockford Bales, because he can go to Midtown now because of the whole Doctor Strange vs. Symbiote fight that happened. So we then see Lonnie introducing Peter to his football buddies, and man, this scene is a great way to show how charismatic and nice Lonnie is. We see Nico talking to Peter about the Oscorp internship, and Nico's all like, we should eradicate all CEOs, Peter. And Peter is like, what, Nico? Are you crazy? Norman Osborn is a super nice guy who would never do anything shady or evil. Trust me. We then see some shitty animation of Lonnie getting a touchdown. After that, Peter leaves to go to his first day of his new Oscorp internship and gets a shitty-ass picture taken of himself. Then he heads up to meet the other students that were scouted for the internship, and oh my god, is that guy voiced by Alex Lee? Alex is known for voicing these characters. In this show, he voices Amadeus Cho, who usually in most comics becomes the Hulk. Here we go with this show, once again, planting the seeds. Dr. Whitman walks in, who is always in a bad mood. Dr. Whitman in Marvel usually becomes a villain named The Wizard. So yeah, this show is now planting more seeds. Call the show The Gardener. Am I right, guys? Am I right? All the interns are split up to work on different things. Peter is put to work at the Energy Research Division with Carla Connors, who happens to have the same last name and also a missing arm, and is also a scientist like Kurt Connors. Yeah, so she's gonna become the Lizard. I really like Carla. She seems like a fun teacher. Nico calls Peter and they have a little conversation about a party that they got invited to. Peter then makes himself look like a pyromaniac in front of everybody. Peter then goes down to take down this fire villain. I actually really like the look of this fight. I think the 3D animation lends itself pretty well to this fight in particular. Peter has some fun Spider-Man quips during it while fighting in a pet store. After the fight, he heads back to Oscorp and gets scolded by Dr. Whitman about being late for his project. Then the security guard walks in, telling Peter that Mr. Osborn wants to meet with him. Then we see Nico at a party all by herself, and we get this awkward interaction. Nico then texts Peter that she's leaving the party because he's not coming. Peter then walks into Norman's office, saying sorry about being late for the internship project. But then, Norman turns around and is all like, "Peter Parker is Spider-Man? And that's how the episode ends. Personally, I think this episode is not bad, just a slight step down from episode 1, so I'll be putting episode 2 in B tier. Season 1, Episode 3, Secret Identity Crisis. So, Episode 3 opens with Norman saying to Peter that he knows he is Spider-Man because he saw him get into a Spider-Man costume through one of his security cameras at Oscorp. And Peter starts to tweak out. Then Nico starts asking Peter about working there, and Peter's just kind of like, I don't really want to talk about it. Then Nico's foster mom walks in, Miss O'Hara, and is like, "Hey Nico, clean up your disgusting room, you freak." Then Norman makes a oddly romantic dinner at this fancy restaurant for him and Peter. Peter, after getting bribed by food by Norman, finally admits he is Spider-Man. Then Norman tells Peter, "Hey, thanks for saving my son, lol. Can you please work for me now?" And Peter's like, I guess.
I am Spider-Man. Just please don't tell my Aunt May. She's under enough stress. She doesn't need to know about this.
Huh. Look at you. Even when someone knows your secret, your biggest concern is the well-being of someone else.
This scene between Norman and Peter is really good because it shows the doubt Peter has about keeping people safe. Because if too many people know he's Spider-Man, then we get the classic Spider-Man dilemma of, this person knows that I'm Spider-Man, so they're gonna go ahead and kill people that I care about. We then see these two thugs that are dating each other give money to this robot dumpster that works for some random person who will definitely not be important in a few episodes. May and Peter then have a conversation about selling Uncle Ben's shit, like his bowling shirt that has his name on it. Seriously, who's gonna buy that? Lonnie, Peter, Nico, and Pearl all meet up at lunch. And because of Peter helping Lonnie with his science project, Lonnie's like, "Yo, Peter, you're broke. Let me pay for you." Then Lonnie's card declines. After only getting an apple for lunch, Lonnie gets a call from his mother saying that he needs to come home quickly. We then find out that Lonnie's brother was caught with these people called the 110th Street Gang. Then we see these two idiots robbing a jewelry store with their stupid gadgets. Peter then shows up and is all like, "Hey guys, can we stop doing that?" And then Peter makes the worst joke in the entire show.
You guys are totally like couple goals. What dating app did you meet on? Burglar?
We then see Lonnie show up to get his brother from the so-called 110th Street Gang, and then we meet Big Don. Lonnie then says that the gang should take him instead of his brother. Spider-Man falls flat on his ass, and then Norman calls him and gives him some advice on how to beat these goobers, and so then Peter does, mainly because Dumb and Dumber overloaded their gadgets. Peter and Norman then shake on it, agreeing to work together and take down bad guys. And then we see a comparison between Peter's life and Lonnie's life, as Lonnie is now forced to join the 110th Street Gang. This is really interesting because obviously joining a gang is, bad. I would know. But also we know that Norman is bad. I mean, come on. He is Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, the evil business tycoon. It's just that Norman is being bad in plain sight, but nobody can do anything about it. I know this might sound dumb, but think about Breaking Bad and Gus Fring. While characters like Tuco and the twins are just bad on the surface and they'll always be bad and they live and breathe evilness, Gus is secretive about it, coming off as the happy-go-lucky chicken man. The same thing is happening with Norman right now. Advancing the world in science and technology, but also being a pretty shady person himself. I can't believe I just compared Spider-Man to Breaking Bad. Anyway, I'm giving episode 3 a B tier. Season 1, Episode 4, Hitting the Big Time. We start episode 4 showing Peter shitting bricks over his science presentation for Oscorp. Dr. Whitman then freaks out over Peter's project, the magnetic generator. Then Dr. Connor tells Dr. Whitman to calm down. Then Peter leaves to go talk to Norman Osborn. While he's heading up, he bumps into Harry and they have a little light-hearted banter together. How nice. Then Norman is all like, "Hey Peter, try on these different suits Oscorp made for you." Then Peter then tries on one of the suits and then gets styled on by a cape. We then see this scene between Lonnie and Pearl. They're discussing Lonnie having to leave school early yesterday, and obviously Lonnie doesn't tell her that he just joined a gang. We then see a montage between Peter's life of trying on different spider suits and Lonnie's life of getting picked on by Big Don at the 110th Street gang. While Peter is off scaring kids with his new suits, Lonnie is picking up food for the 110th Street gang and immediately gets chased by the rival gang, the Scorpions. Lonnie then comes back with the food and is understandably mad about being sent to just get almost jumped. Then Big Don starts telling Lonnie about Matt Gargan, the Scorpion, like he is King Von or something. Peter and Norman then talk about why Norman is making Peter play dress up with all these different suits. Norman is basically saying that Peter needs to step up and be as good as the Avengers. Then Norman shows Peter the last and final suit for this episode, the Future Foundation suit, which honestly looks great. Then we see a montage of Peter swinging around with it. We then see these Russian people pulling off a heist causing a big accident, so Peter has to show up and save people from their burning cars. The cops show up and chase the Russian gang, then one of them jumps out of the van with all the money, while the other three get arrested. Peter accidentally reveals he is Spider-Man to Harry by coming through the window. After all that, we then find out who's giving crazy tech to all these criminals, and shit, it's Doc Ock, isn't it? It's gonna be Doc Ock.
Ms. Mazurek, how can I help you this evening?
This episode is easily my least favorite from the entire show. It's getting a C tier. Season 1, Episode 5, The Unicorn Unleashed. We start Episode 5 with Doc Ock giving that Russian chick a laser helmet so she can break her friends out of prison. Doc Ock then starts monologuing about not being known for his work while Stark and Osborn are.
Soon enough, Vincent. My name should be held in higher regard than Stark, Banner, Osborn.
Will be. We're so close to seeing your dream realized and showing the world just how incredible you are.
You're right. I've waited this long, but soon everyone will know and revere the name of Dr. Otto Octavius.
Overall, really good scene. I also really like Doc Ock's theme here. Super good. Norman is busy, so Harry becomes Peter's dude at the desk for the day. Also, Harry drives Peter to school, making Peter look sick as fuck in front of all his classmates. Peter then finds out that Harry is kind of a big deal, and so Nico schools him on her woke liberal ideals. Lonnie gets a sit down with his coach about missing football practice, and Peter gets him and Nico tickets to watch a movie together. Lonnie then gets a call right before practice from Big Don, saying that he needs him right now. Lonnie is upset and says, "Hey man, I'm gonna get kicked off the football team." And then Big Don says, "I missed the part where that's my problem." Peter is getting suited up to go fight crime, and him and Harry have a wholesome scene talking about superheroes that they like. I want to add that I think it's super interesting how in this version of Spider-Man, he looks up to Captain America instead of Iron Man. Anyway, the Russian woman goes to break her other Russian hooligans out of prison. While doing this, she starts trying to murder police officers, so Peter shows up to fight her. Before that can happen, we get introduced to Matt Gargan, the Scorpion, facing off with the 110th Street gang. While Peter is fighting the Russian lady, she tried to sacrifice one of her friends to kill Spider-Man. And while that is happening, Lonnie takes a knife for Big Don to protect him from the Scorpion who tried to rush him with said knife. Russian girl's friend stops her from literally murdering Peter because he did save his life from getting lasered by the Russian woman. And then that Russian guy says, "Hey, by the way, Peter, if I ever see you again, I'm going to fucking murder you." Peter then realizes he is like to hang out with Nico at the movies, so he goes and he makes it just in time. Harry then shows up to third wheel Peter and Nico, and then Nico does a really bad job of hiding her sadness about Harry coming. The final scene of episode 5 is Lonnie heading back to the 110th Street gang hangout, and then Lonnie gets a warm welcome from Big Don, thanking him for saving his life with the Scorpions. And this is the scene where Lonnie Lincoln gets his nickname, Tombstone.
Tombstone? Yeah, I can't lie. Kinda like it.
And that's the end of episode 5. If I'm being honest, I think this one is alright. I think it's the perfect midpoint of the show, not being too much, but not being too little. It's going in A tier. Season 1, Episode 6, Duel with the Devil. Episode 6 starts and oh my god, what is that? A change to the intro to fit what's happening in said show? Showing Peter in his new Spider-Man outfit to reflect the change? Man, this is crazy. Reminds me of another piece of media that I like. Anyway, we start with Peter trying to get Nico's attention in class and tries to get this kid to tell Nico to turn around and look at him. The kid understandably doesn't want to do it, so he's all like, hell nah. And so the teacher comes over and gets mad at Peter and that random kid. We then see Lonnie getting kicked off the football team by his coach, who's voiced by the legendary voice actor, Roger Craig Smith, my all-time favorite voice actor of all time, known for voicing these guys. Pearl and Lonnie get into an argument because Lonnie's not telling Pearl what's going on. Peter is now paranoid that Nico is mad at him about the whole inviting Harry to hang out thing, and Nico is not really into it. Lonnie doesn't show up to science class, so Peter is left in class to do his own thing. So he gets transferred to Pearl and this random girl named Emma's group. Pearl is still in a shitty mood about Lonnie being weird, so she starts info dumping to Peter about it. We then see Lonnie come home and argue with his brother about Lonnie joining the gang instead of him. We then see Peter and Harry talking about their planned hangout with Nico tonight, and then Norman walks into the room with this classy suit on, and then some evil-ass villain music starts playing. We then see Jean sneak into Norman's office, which totally isn't sus at all, and so Peter confronts her.
Bruh.
May makes food for the kids and gives them a bunch of movies to watch. Harry then makes a funny joke.
Hey, what kind of caviar is this? It's so sweet and chewy.
They're raisins, dude.
Harry then talks about his mom not being around anymore, which then Peter's all like, hey, I also don't have a mom. And Nico doesn't have a mom. Wow, look at all of us. But that really wasn't a hit with the crowd, so Harry and Nico are kind of just like, yeah, whatever you say, man. Harry and Nico then argue over which movie they're going to watch. Then Peter's all like, alright guys, I got this, let's watch Predator. We then see Norman talk to Secretary Ross about the whereabouts of Steve Rogers, and oh yeah, did I mention this show takes place during Civil War, but not the MCU Civil War? How interesting. Norman then says, hey, by the way, Secretary Ross, check out this Spider-Man guy, he's pretty awesome. Norman then gets an alert that someone broke into Oscorp, so he calls Harry because Peter turned off his cellular device earlier. Harry then hands the phone to Peter, and so Peter has to leave his friends to go check on Oscorp. We then see Lonnie getting stalked by this car that has the hot scorpion lady in it, so he books it out of there, understandably. Harry and Nico are having the most awkward moment of their lives right now, when Harry spots tarot cards in Nico's pocket, and then shows Nico his lapis lazuli earrings. When Peter gets to Oscorp, he spots some shadowy figure and chases him down to the rooftop. And oh my god, is that Daredevil who's voiced by the god himself, Charlie Cox, the man who actually plays Daredevil in the MCU? So yeah, that's pretty awesome. They then have this little scuffle on the rooftop, and yeah, this fight is pretty awesome. One of the best in the entire show so far. From the actual fight to their funny banter, it's just overall pretty great. While they're fighting, Daredevil's all like, hey, by the way, your boss, Norman, is shady as hell and he is hiding something. Then Daredevil knocks out Peter. Harry then fucks up his tarot card reading with Nico because he wants to play Go Fish instead. Harry then tells Nico Peter's secret, that he's Spider-Man. Norman then calls Peter to ask him what happened at Oscorp, and he just says, actually, just wait for me to get there, I'm gonna be there soon. Norman then drops a bombshell, telling Peter that he knows who's behind all the tech criminals are using. Then he spins his monitor around to show Doc Ock, or as I call him, Doc Double Chin. Then Norman reveals to him how him and Doc Ock used to work together, and how Doc Ock was unstable and mad he was not getting the recognition for his work. Norman then tells Peter that Doc Ock is the one who hired Daredevil, but Peter doubts it, but Norman insists. Then Peter leaves to go back to his friends, and then we get this scene.
You're...
Nico then leaves because she is petty. We then see Lonnie talking to Big Don about the hot scorpion lady. We then see the hot scorpion lady tracking down the 110th Street gang outside their hideout. And on top of that, she's on the phone with Matt Gargan, who's getting his super scorpion suit put on by Doc Ock, putting an end to the episode. Honestly, I really like this one. From the fight with Daredevil to the lore about Doc Ock and Norman, to the reveal of Peter being Spider-Man to Nico, and the scorpion suit. Overall, this episode was fantastic! I'm giving episode 6 a S tier. Season 1, Episode 7, Scorpion Rising. Episode 7 begins with Peter getting ignored by Nico still, because she's still shitty that Peter didn't tell her about him being Spider Guy. So Peter hits the Shinji pose outside of his school. Pearl then walks up to him and asks him what's wrong. He then says that he messed up, and that he asks Pearl what's up with Lonnie. Then Peter tries to cheer her up. Then we get this great scene between them. Peter at this moment feels the touch of a woman for the first time, and he gets scared so he leaves to go to Oscorp. We then see Lonnie's brother text Pearl and ask her if she has a second. Then we get shown Lonnie having a phone call with his mom, where she asks him where he's been because he never went home last night. And then he lies to her with the excuse that he was helping out a friend with schoolwork. While this is happening, he's looking at his fellow gang members unpacking boxes full of guns. In my opinion, this whole scene is great, showing Lonnie moving further away from good and a righteous path and falling deeper into the 110th Street gang. Excellent scene, hope we get more of this. We then get this crazy-ass transition to Oscorp, where Peter and Norman are talking about tracking Otto down, with finding what type of power he's using for his tech. And then we get this reference to Spider-Man too.
I doubt he's managed to harness the power of the sun.
We then find out that Doc Ock is using gamma radiation due to Peter having a super genius moment. Then at Oscorp, an alarm goes off, letting Peter know to head down to Harlem because there's something going on over there. We then get introduced to our B plot for this episode, with Harry arriving to Nico's house to try to talk things out with her about Peter. We then see Harry and Nico eating pizza on top of a rooftop, and Nico is holding her pizza the correct way. Harry then asks Nico, with a pretty please and a cherry on top, if she can forgive Peter. Nico then acts unreasonable about the whole situation, crashing out, basically saying that she's jealous of Peter and Harry, without ever actually saying that. Harry then tells her to shut the fuck up, without ever actually saying that. Nico then says nice car to Harry, and then he decides to teach her how to drive because he's an epic car enthusiast. Harry and Nico have this little bonding moment about driving, and this douchebag shows up and packs up Harry. Nico then gets understandably mad, says, hey, wanna race? Then we get this awesome racing between them. Nico almost hits a car while racing, but uses her cool purple amulet thing to get out of the way, alluding to the fact that she has some powers of her own. And then she beats the random woman in the race. Well done, Nico. Congratulations. We then see Pearl show up to the gang's hideout because Lonnie's brother snitched on him, and she starts crashing out on him. Then, right when he's about to say something stupid, the Scorpion shows up, and proceeds to kill a bunch of people, and he looks awesome. Before the Scorpion can kill Lonnie, though, Peter shows up to save the day. We then see Harry drop Nico back off of her house, and Nico admits that she was wrong finally.
So everything's Gucci?
We're Gucci.
Great. I'll let Peter know, and then...
What? No, I'm still mad at Pete.
And never mind, she's still mad at Peter. What the fuck? We then see Peter fighting the Scorpion, and god, this fight is really good. The Scorpion feels like a real threat with a unique fighting style. Peter runs out of webbing, and then the Scorpion breaks out using gamma radiation from his suit. Peter, during the fight, is asking Norman for any ideas to take down the Scorpion, but Norman is too focused on locating where Doc Ock is, and finally locates him. While this is happening, Peter gets stabbed through the chest by the Scorpion's tail. The Scorpion then absolutely punches Peter's shit in, but before he can kill him, Norman sends down his definitely not green goblin glider to save Peter and pick him up from the fight. Then the episode ends, with the credits from the show having somber music and flames over it. Yeah, I think I know where this episode is going. Even on rewatch, this episode is still my favorite in the entire season by a mile. Episode 7, Scorpion Rising, is getting our first S+. Season 1, Episode 8, Tangled Web. Episode 8 starts with this awesome POV shot of Peter getting beat up by the Scorpion, and then he wakes up in the hospital with Norman by his side. Peter then starts spiraling about if Aunt May's okay or where the Scorpion is, and Norman's all like, hey pal, take a chill pill please. Then we get this great scene between Norman and Peter, with Norman telling Peter he needs to up his game. We then see Peter escape the hospital, showing up to Oscorp, seeing everyone react to his magnetic generator him and Dr. Connors made. Then Connors tells Peter to go take it easy and rest up. Peter then shows back up at his house, and May is understandably upset with Peter, because he's not telling her exactly what happened, and he gets a bit emotional, and they both start venting to each other about their emotions. This scene is really sweet, having these characters actually pour their hearts to each other for once. We then see Doc Ock playing some cookie clicker-esque game on his computer. Then he gets raided by a SWAT team and uses his metal arms to take them out. With this really fun scene of him using all these traps he had set up like Jigsaw, he then starts dancing like he's straight out of a musical number. He then walks out of his lab and shits his pants because Iron Man is here to grab him. After that, we get this dream sequence where Peter is freaking out over Nico, Norman, and the Scorpion. Then he wakes up and looks at his text to Nico, showing that he's been left unread. So he decides to leave her a voice message. While mid-voice message, he gets a call from Pearl, asking him to come over and work on their science project together at her house. When Peter gets to Pearl's house, they have this fun little scene showing their friendship. Then Lonnie shows up and ruins everything, and so Lonnie and Pearl have to go talk outside with this fun little comic strip effect showing Peter's face and their conversation at the same time. Very cool. Pearl then gives Lonnie an ultimatum. If you stay with the 110th Street gang, I'm breaking up with you. And so Pearl and Lonnie break up because Lonnie's not willing to leave it. Peter then jumps out of Pearl's window and tries to talk Lonnie out of it. Then Lonnie tells Peter to fuck off. We then get this shot of Peter walking home, mirroring the shot of Lonnie walking home from episode 1. Very cool. Peter then gets home and no one's home because May got called into work, so then Peter shows up to Oscorp so he can talk to Norman, and so Norman kicks out Harry of his office. Norman then drops this really hard line, which is a variation of what Uncle Ben says. Instead of great power comes with great responsibility, he says,
with great power comes great respect.
Which is a great twist on the classic line, showing that Norman's priorities are not in order. In Norman's eyes, Spider-Man is not supposed to help people, but to instead beat people, to make villains fear him. Very interesting. Congrats, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. You've subverted my expectations once again. We then see Big Don and the 110th Street gang chilling in an alleyway. Then that Russian guy from episode 5 looking very, chameleon-like. I'm sure that's nothing. Says, hey, I know where the Scorpion got his tech from, and then he dips. We then see Peter venting to Harry about Norman saying that evil shit to him. Then Harry gets a police alert saying there's a van jacking in Midtown. Harry then tells Peter to suit up. Peter's then all like, what suit? My suit was destroyed by the Scorpion. Then Harry reveals that he made Peter the Spider-Man suit he always wanted, the classic red and blue. Harry then drops this line.
Go get him, Tiger.
Confirming that in fact he is a homosexual, and that he wants Peter. And that's where the episode ends. Oh golly gee, I really liked episode 8. I'm thinking A tier, not as good as episode 7, nowhere near it, but still pretty good. I really liked all the Pearl, Peter, and Lonnie stuff going on. Very cool. Season 1, Episode 9, Hero or Menace? Episode 9 opens with Doc Ock nerding out over some legal mumbo-jumbo while he's in prison. He then gets a call to go talk to someone who wants to talk to him, and it turns out to be no one else but Norman Osborn. This scene between Otto and Norman is god tier. Norman just goes in on Otto, revealing he's the one who got him put in jail, absolutely rage-baiting Otto in the process. Then we get shown Big Don scoping out this truck full of Doc Ock's tech. Then Nico finally listens to Peter's voice message. While that's happening, the 110th Street gang attempts to hijack the truck, full of Doc Ock's tech, and then the truck almost hits Nico while she's walking down the street. Luckily for her, Spider-Man is here to save her, and we get a full reveal of Peter's new suit, and oh boy, it looks amazing! Peter then moves Nico away from all the gang violence going on, and shows up to stop the 110th Street gang from getting the tech. While that's happening, Peter's spidey sense goes off, showing that the Scorpion has arrived. Peter then starts having a realistic depiction of a panic attack because of seeing the Scorpion again. Then, the said Scorpion jumps on Big Don and tries to kill him. Too bad Peter shows up and stops him from killing the big man himself. And so, he starts fighting him. Big Don then pussies out and leaves and takes the car. Lonnie then starts fighting the hot Scorpion woman for the tech in the truck. This guy named Dozer, part of the 110th Street gang, gets the hot Scorpion woman off of Lonnie, so Lonnie goes into the truck. Because he's clumsy, he knocks over this canister of blue mist, and he starts coughing a bunch. While that's happening, Peter's still fighting the Scorpion in this awesome fight. Luckily, the Scorpion is stupid and electrocutes himself with a power box, but then he gets back up, grabbing Peter. But Lonnie's all like, pick on someone your own size, pal. And so the Scorpion is going to go fight Lonnie. But because of this blue shit that Lonnie got hit by, he is now indestructible. Lonnie then withstands the Scorpion's attack and punches him. So now Lonnie, Lincoln, the Tombstone, and Peter Parker, Spider-Man, start 2v1ing the Scorpion in this great fight scene. But the moment they think they put the Scorpion down, he sneakily drops these metal beams onto Lonnie, making Peter tweak out, and he stops holding himself back like Norman said, absolutely giving it to the Scorpion. Peter is about 2 seconds away from killing the Scorpion, but then Lonnie comes out and stops him from killing him. Who would have thought that Tombstone would have been the one to stop Peter Parker from killing someone? Masterful storytelling. And so Peter leaves, and Lonnie heads back with his gang. We then see Nico going into an alley to meet with Peter, and Peter jump scares her, so she punches him and they make up, having a good heart-to-heart and hugging it out. Then they agree not to keep secrets from each other. After Peter leaves though, Nico looks down at her purple amulet, alluding to the fact that she's still going to keep secrets from him. Peter then gets a call from Norman, where Norman congratulates him on the win. And then we get this awesome scene between them where Norman says, hey man, chill out and don't kill people please. Then Norman goes to do some evil shit after just saying that, with his scientist talking about an upcoming project they are working on. And then we get the reveal that Norman is working on making more spider people with Spider-Man's DNA. And that's episode 9 ends. Oh boy, this one was great. I'm thinking a high S tier. This episode is great, just not hitting that double S tier like episode 7 did. Episode 7 just has something about it. I would rather see Spider-Man suffer than to see him thriving. That's always the best part about Spider-Man stories in my opinion. Season 1, Episode 10. If This Be My Destiny. Oh wow, the opening change for episode 10 again, showing Peter in his new costume. How awesome. Anyway, we start the episode with the news that the football team lost their game yesterday, and that Peter is late for school because he's out Spider-Manning. But Peter makes it just in time to help Pearl present her science project because Nico stalled for 10 years. Too bad when Peter gets there, their project's all broken, because Peter rushed to school and broke it. Luckily, the other girl on their team, Emma, clutches the presentation. And then Pearl calls Peter for the very first time in the entire show, instead of Petey. We then get shown Peter and his Oscorp buddies at Oscorp. Then Norman comes in and says, hey guys, you should all come check this out. Then he shows them this portal that he made using all of their volunteer projects that they worked on. This portal will take them to outer space. Norman then has this evil monologue about how this portal is going to change the world. Then he starts up the portal. But before they can do that, Dr. Strange shows up and tells Norman, hey, can you, not do this please? Dr. Strange in this show is voiced by Robert Atkin Downes, legendary voice actor known for these characters. Peter then says, hey, I know you, weren't you at Midtown when that symbiote attacked? And Strange says, nuh-uh, I wasn't there. Then Norman starts lambasting Strange about destroying Midtown High. Norman then starts revealing his true feelings about superheroes. He then starts up the portal anyway. And yep, the portal leads to space alright. Oh my god, is that Venom? So this was the bad thing Strange was talking about. Ah, I see, makes sense. The portal then shuts off while Strange and Spider-Man start fighting the symbiote thing. Peter and Venom then get sent through space and time, but Strange pulls them out of it. Strange then turns to Peter and says, hey, can you restart the portal so we can send the big guy back through? So then Peter starts working on that while Strange uses his time stone on the symbiote. Strange then sends himself and the symbiote through a portal where they can battle without any distractions. And that leads them back to the fight that happens at Midtown High in episode 1? This is insane! That means this version of Peter was bitten by a spider using his own DNA, and that's what caused him to become Spider-Man. Because in the Marvel timeline, time is not linear. The past can be the present, and the future can be the past. This revelation is absolutely insane, because we see the spider Oscorp was making get out of its cage during the fight with the symbiote, and falling through the portal. Strange then holds back the multiple symbiotes while Peter fixes the generator and cuts the portal off just in time. But too bad a little piece of the symbiote gets through, and I'm sure this will not be important next season at all. What are you talking about? We then see Peter, Harry, and Nico back at Peter's place. Peter then reflects on his time at Oscorp, but decides he doesn't really want to go back. Nico then gives Harry the idea to make his own company that would just let super genius kids work on science stuff. Later that night, Peter and Strange coincidentally both meet up at Midtown, reflecting on their time travel shenanigans. Peter then asks Strange if he can tell him about the future form, and Strange says no, then leaves. After Strange leaves, we get to see the Watcher from Marvel What If looking at Peter from the sky. We then see Norman looking around the destroyed portal as he spots a piece of the symbiote left behind. Harry then makes his own company called Web, and he sends out an invitation to a bunch of people, including Peter's volunteer friends. That's when we find out that Jean, the girl who broke into Norman's office, is actually working with Daredevil, and is the superhero named Finesse. We then see Lonnie, with the skin at his fingertips turning white, losing his melanin. And he jumps into a car with Dozer, and Dozer calls him the new boss of the 110th Street Gang, and then Lonnie throws out his jacket, now really becoming Tombstone. After that, we see Nico doing some weird magic shit with her amulet, and then Doc Ock is in prison drawing his robot arms on the wall, teasing that he will still be around in Season 2. Aunt May is also at prison, but it's because she's meeting with someone, and it's not Doc Ock. That someone turns out to be Peter's dad, who's in prison for a unknown reason. We then get a awesome final swing with Peter through the city, putting a close on your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Yeah, so episode 10 is peak. S+ tier, 100%. So many good reveals in this one. To Peter's dad, to Norman going a bit mad, to the Doctor Strange time loop. Overall, great ending of the episode, and a really good ending to the season as a whole. Wow, that was a lot. Oh man, that's my longest video ever on this channel. Jeez. Well, that was fun. If you guys want a video about Spectacular Spider-Man, where I rank in a tier list all the episodes of Spectacular Spider-Man, I don't know, help this video get to like 5,000 views. I'm begging, please. I need this. Anyway, that's the end of the video. If you guys liked it, hit that like button and subscribe. And this has been Roboman, the one and only, and I'm signing out.